Hi, and I hope you had a wonderful weekend and ready to get back into learning English. So, what are we doing? We are talking about the future tense. So, we know that when we have an action that we're doing something, we need to know if it's in the past, the present, or the future. Now, I want to talk to someone and tell them what my plans are for the future. What am I going to be doing? What will I do? Okay, so these are the kind of words that I want to use, will and going to be talking about my plans, what I want to do, what I'm going to do, where I'm traveling, where I'm studying, any plans in the future. So not today, but maybe tomorrow, next week, next year. So using the future tense. And let's talk about the grammar first, and then we'll do some exercises. So with the future tense, and hi to Yaneth, you are online today with us. Okay, I just want to talk about the grammar rules first, because I always think it's best to know the rules and then to practice some exercises. So when we use the future simple tense, okay, because there's many ways that we can talk in the future. But if we use the first one, which is just a simple one, we are using the word will before the action. So when I use the future simple tense, it's because I'm letting you know that my plan is certain, it's sure, it's 100%. Like tomorrow, I will work. 100%. I will work. I'm very sure about that. Not maybe, but I'm very, very sure that this action is going to happen tomorrow. It will happen tomorrow. So I start with the subject, I, you, he, she, it, we, they. And then we put the will and then the verb. Now the verb, there's no S, there's no ing, there's no ed. So it's a sentence like, I will work tomorrow. I will see you tomorrow. I will give you my book tomorrow. I will travel to Europe next year. I will study. I will graduate in a couple of months. Okay, so when we're talking about our plans in the future. Now, to make it a negative, we add not. So it's I will not, and then the action. So I will not see you tomorrow. I will not work tomorrow. I will not travel next year. But we can also put will not together and make it won't. So I won't see you tomorrow. I won't work tomorrow. I won't travel next year. And you can, it's the same. If you want to say will not or won't, they're the same, but you must say one. So will not or won't. Now, if I want to ask someone a question, we know that when we make a question, we start with the verb. Now, because this is the future simple, I must ask about the future. So I must use the same verb, will, subject, and then the action. So for example, will you work tomorrow? Will I see you tomorrow? Will we go out this weekend? Will we travel next year? Okay, so it's like I'm asking someone about their plans, what they want to do in the future. Now, we can add I don't think before the subject and will verb when we're giving a positive sentence. So it's a subject like, I think I will work tomorrow. So I'm talking about the future, but maybe I'm not 100% sure. I'm not exactly certain. I don't know 100%. It's the future, like I'm talking about tomorrow, next week, next year, but I'm not 100% sure. So I add, I think. Now we can make it a negative. I don't think. I don't think I will work on the weekend, but I'm not sure yet. Maybe. I don't think I will, but I'll let you know. Now, when we say I think, it's the same as saying I believe, I feel. For a negative, I feel I won't graduate this year. I believe she won't work in the future or next week. Now, we can also talk about the future when we say an adjective. So I will be really excited when I travel. I will be so, so happy. I will be really nervous for my test. So we use an adjective, not an action, when we want to give the feeling of how we feel in the future. So maybe we're very excited, we're nervous, we're going to be very angry, we will be so happy. So we're talking about an action, but then I'm talking about my feeling of the action in the future. So I have to say will be adjective. So I will be happy when I pass my test. I will be relieved. I will be exhausted after work this week. I will be relaxed when I go on holiday. Okay, just some examples. I will go to the markets tomorrow. A negative, I won't study on Saturday. I will move in July to Melbourne. Now you can see that when you talk about the future, you can put the time at the end of the sentence. So I will go to the markets on Sunday. I will go to the markets next week. I will go to the markets very soon. So we can put the time at the end, or we can put it at the beginning. Tomorrow, I will go to the markets. Next week, I will go to the markets. Okay, so the time, remember we call this the time phrase, and it tells us when the action is going to happen. So I can put it at the end of the sentence or at the beginning of a sentence. Okay, so that was just some quick grammar to talk about the future simple tense. I'm talking about what I will do in the future. Tomorrow, next week, next year. What will happen is a positive sentence. Won't is a negative sentence. And to ask a question, I say will. And remember, all the subjects have the same verb. There's no ing, no ed, no s, nothing. It's just the action, study, speak, travel, buy, go, whatever the action is, travel, no ing, no ed. Okay, so if we have a look at our textbook, we can see that an Inuit man in the Arctic holding a photo of South Carolina, and the photo is by Ira Block. So we can see this man here. He's an Inuit man, so that must be his nationality. He must be a man from the Arctic, so above the earth, the Arctic, and he's holding a photo of South Carolina. South Carolina is a state in USA. So we can see the two places are very different. In Arctic, it's extremely cold. We can see snow, yeah? Snow, there's the snow dogs. He's wearing his coat. But in the photo, it looks very different. It looks like it's a river. It's a swamp. There's lots of trees. Yeah, there's the water is like greeny color. So very different places. Two very different places. So let's listen to a documentary, a short little audio about the two photos, and let's answer some questions.
This Inuit man lives on Baffin Island in Canada. It's in the Arctic, about 2,500 kilometres from the North Pole. Ira Block took the photo, and the Inuit man is also holding another photo by Ira Block. Ira took this second photo in the US state of South Carolina, which is about 2,500 kilometres from the equator. Ira took the two photos because about 56 million years ago, the Arctic probably looked like South Carolina today. At that time, the temperature in the Arctic was around 25 degrees Celsius. Nowadays, the average temperature in the Arctic is around -10 degrees.
Okay, so the Inuit man lives about 2,500 kilometers from the North Pole. So if we look at this world here, we can see that we have the world, and the center part is called the equator. The North Pole is the top of the world. The South Pole is in the bottom of the world. And this is where he is, Baffin Island. So this man lives 2,500 kilometers. This is the distance. So how far? From the equator. So from here to here is 2,500 kilometers. So 2,500 kilometers. So this is the symbol, kilometers. We just say km, but 2,500 kilometers. The US state of South Carolina is about 2,500 kilometers from the equator. Sorry, the first one is from the North Pole. So from here to the North Pole is 2,500 kilometers from the North Pole, and South Carolina is 2,500 kilometers from the equator. So from here to here, 2,500, and from here to here, 2,500. And what happened? 56 million years ago, the Arctic probably looked like South Carolina. So remember in this photo, the Arctic probably, that means maybe, looked like this a long, long time ago, 56 million years ago. At that time, the temperature in the Arctic was around 25 degrees Celsius. So 25 degrees, this is how we say it. We say the number first, 25, and then we say degrees, and then the symbol, Celsius. Nowadays, the average temperature in the Arctic is -10 degrees Celsius. Okay, so it was very, very warm before, and now it's -10 degrees, extremely cold, snow, ice. So we know if we talk about Australia, we know that Australia, which is in the southern hemisphere, is in the south to the equator. Australia is down here. And at the moment, we know that we are in autumn, just before winter. Okay, so the season, we call it the season. We are in autumn, just before winter. Now, if you live in the northern hemisphere, then it's the opposite. You are in spring. And let's look at some measurement vocabulary. So measurement means when I want to see how far something is, I want to see how big something is, how the temperature of something. I want to see how much it weighs, maybe. So we use these symbols. So this one is called percent. Now, a percentage means out of 100. So you know that when you do exams, you'll get, 80%, 90%. And that means out of 100. So you have 100 marks. What percent, what score, what mark did you get out of 100? So we use this to measure, how your ability on a test, the percentage of, maybe you want to make a vote to see, which president is going to be the president. You ask people which one you want to be president. So you can have a percentage. You can see this many people chose this option. This many people chose this option. The next one is degrees Celsius. And the symbol, it looks like this, degrees Celsius. So we know that in Australia and the UK, we say degrees Celsius. In America, they say degrees Fahrenheit. And that's to measure the temperature, okay? Measurement. We can see if it's how cold it is, how hot it is. We measure the temperature. Kilometre. Okay, so kilometre, this is the symbol, km. Okay, and kilometre shows me how far something is. So I can ask you, how many kilometers is your home from the main city? How many kilometers is our next trip? Do we have to drive? Or how many kilometers did you drive today? Or how far is the markets to your home? How many kilometers? This one is liters. So when you see an L symbol, that means liters. Now, liters we use to measure liquid, maybe water. So if you're making a cake, maybe you need liquid of milk or something liquid, something that's like water. Maybe you always tell someone you should always drink 6 liters of water a day. This one is square meters. And square meters, it has the 2 is like this. So this one, square meters. So we say the square meters. So you start with the number first, square meters. And I use this when I want to measure the land, for example. So my home is on a 700 square meter land. So I can say how big is the land. And kilogram. So kilogram, we use kilogram when we want to measure the weight of something. So if I say to you, I need 5 kilograms of tomato, or how much do you weigh? I weigh 50 kilograms. Now, again, in America, they use a different measurement, but in Australia and the UK, we say kilograms. Okay, so let's read a little passage together. The temperature at the center of the earth is about 7,500 degrees Celsius. The North Pole is over 20,000 kilometers, because we're talking about distance from the South Pole. 70% of the Earth's surface is water. So of the whole Earth, 70% is water. 1,000 sorry, 148,900. Yeah, sorry, 1,048,940 million square meters of the earth is land. So remember how much is land? We say square meter. Objects on the earth weigh less on the moon. For example, 100 kilograms. Now we can also say kilos. That's a short way to say kilograms. So you could say kilograms or kilos. And we have 100 kilograms on Earth is 16.5 on the moon. It weighs different in space. Every day, 914 trillion liters of rain fall on the earth. So we can remember, because we use liters when we measure something that's liquid, like water, milk, drinks, anything that's liquid. Okay, then we've got some words. Some of them are adjective and some of them are noun. So if you look, they seem very similar. If I say long, that's an adjective, but the noun is length. If I say deep, that's an adjective, but the noun is depth. If I say high, that's an adjective. If I say height, that's a noun. If I say weigh, that's an adjective. If I say weight, that's a noun. So for example, with questions that start with a H, so how, and I have to use the adjective. So for example, how long is your hair? How deep is the swimming pool? How high is the building? How much do you weigh? So I use how with adjectives, but I use what with nouns. For example, what is the length of your house? What is the depth of the pool? What is your height? What is your weight? So same questions, but I must use the nouns with what question and the adjective with how. But when you say does, you can use both adjective or noun. For example, does your book weigh a lot? So we've got some questions here. What's the length of a marathon? Because remember, we've got the W. So what's the length? Okay, we're using the W with the noun. What's the length? So that means the distance of the marathon. So when you're running, what's the length of the marathon? How, what would I say for question 2? How deep? Because with the how, I've got to use an adjective. So how deep is the Mariana Trench? So these are questions. Make sure you put question marks. So you could see a how question. How deep, again, is the swimming pool? How deep is the ocean? How deep is something? Sweden has the tallest men and women in the world. What is their average height? Remember, we use what with noun. What is the average height. What is the height of the tallest person in the world? How many kilometers equals 1 mile? So in Australia, we say kilometers. In the USA, they say miles. So it's the same type of measurement, but just different. It's the same type of measurement for distance, but it's different type of measurement. We say kilometers, they say mile. So how many kilometers equals 1 mile? What percentage of the world's population live in China? So of all the people in the world, what percent live in China? 80%, 70%? I don't know. Does a kilogram of metal or a kilogram of plastic weigh? So which one weighs more? Which one is more heavy? Does plastic weigh more or metal? Okay, let's read an article so we can practice our pronunciation. We can read together. Okay, so you can repeat after me to practice your pronunciation. So it's an article on climate change. So we know climate change is something which is happening in the world. It means the temperatures are just changing from what they were before. There's been a change in the temperature of the world. So we're going to read here together. Climate change is the title. Climate scientists have measured the temperature and rainfall on every part of the earth over many years. They look at the changes and predict the future. The first map shows the temperature change over 30 years. In most parts of the world, the temperature has increased by a few degrees. And scientists think it will increase in the future. The second map shows rainfall change on the earth over 30 years. The change in rainfall is very different from region to region. It has increased in some countries, for example, Venezuela, and scientists think it will continue to increase in the future. But rainfall has decreased in other places, such as parts of Brazil. In these regions, rainfall will continue to decrease. In conclusion, the changes in climate probably won't stop in the near future. Okay, so we know what is the climate in our country. We know at the moment in Australia, the climate is pretty cold. Okay, it's starting to become, we're getting close to winter. So at the moment, the climate in Australia is a little bit cold. It's sunny in the day, but there's a cool breeze in the night. So what does the map show? We know the first map shows the temperature, and the second map, the percent of the rainfall. So the first map, temperature, second map, rainfall. How many years is it for? 30 years. How does it show the change? That's okay. Bottle? No worries. So it shows the change because if we look at the maps, by a color, it uses a color code. You see the color code? Welcome. So that's how we know how to see the change in the temperature. So blue, really cold, -2, to hot, 4 degrees. And for the rainfall, -15 degrees for rain, and then 15 in the green color. So let's answer some questions. The temperature in the Arctic Circle has decreased by 4 degrees. Do we agree or not? So the temperature in the Arctic Circle has decreased by 4 degrees. So if I look at the Arctic Circle, which should be here in the top, I don't think it has decreased by 4. It's actually gone up by 4. Can you see because it's red? So the temperature on top of the world has increased by 4 degrees, not decreased, increased, because it's red. So false for number 1F. Number 2, the temperature change in the north is higher than the south. True. I can see the north is more high because of the color. In the south, more cold. The temperature in some parts of Antarctica has decreased by 2 degrees. So Antarctica is on the bottom of the world. Yeah, because it's got the blue color. So yes, it has decreased. If we look at map 2, rainfall has increased in Western Australia and it has decreased in Eastern Australia. It has increased because I can see on the west side, the color is green, so increase, yeah. And decreased on the east side because of the color minus. So true for number 4. Number 5, rainfall has increased in all of Europe. Not really, because I can see there's still blue and orange. So it hasn't completely increased. So false. Rainfall has decreased in parts of Africa by 10 degrees. True. I can see some parts that have decreased by 10 degrees because it's this color. So there's areas in Africa that decreased by 10 degrees. Okay, so let's go back to talking about the future simple tense when we're talking about what is happening in the future. So as I said, for number 8, we use will and won't, the negative won't, the positive will, to talk about the future. Number 2, for number 8, for the third person, he, she, it, we do not add an S. Number 3, the verb after will is in the infinitive form without to. You do not put the word to here. You don't say, I will to see you tomorrow. No, you say, I will see you tomorrow.